University. That helps move this over too. So I have a master's degree in Islamic Studies and a graduate certificate in Islamic chaplaincy. I went to Hartford Seminary to get my training there. So my key start for this is I've only been sent to perfect good moral character. That is from our Prophet ﷺ. And so my title is The Need for a Religious Leader's Code of Conduct. So Imam Shadi talked about my presentation being specifically targeted to Imam, but I want to broaden that to all religious leaders. So it's not just Imams, it's whoever is considered to be a religious leader that works with women, men, children, youth, someone of authority that is seen as a religious leader. And that these religious leaders need to have a code of conduct. A code of conduct that dictates how we are supposed to do our jobs. Okay, next slide. So the way of Islam is to honor and respect our women and youth. I'm here on a college campus, so I work with youth, primarily youth all the time, not just the youth here at Howard University, but we interact with youth on college campuses, all the college campuses in this area, as well as youth from the surrounding communities that come on campus as well. But we know this is the way of Islam. We honor and respect women, youth, children, men. We honor and respect is just the way of Islam. Next slide. Unfortunately, part of the problem is that what has crept into our faith, our ummah, is one, predatory behavior. So a specific case that happened in Chicago, Muhammad Abdullah Salim pled guilty to molesting an underage girl and a female employee. Another imam in British Columbia was convicted of sexually assaulting a female congregant. I mean, these are not isolated instances. A 24-year-old Quran teacher in Toronto took a 10-year-old boy off campus and sexually assaulted him. There are many more cases, predatory behavior. So I'm giving names to what these behaviors are. The abuse of religious authority. There are many instances of imams, scholars engaging in secret marriages with students, naive converts, and congregants. Religious leaders use the vulnerability of women during counseling or after they have been abused by their husbands to encourage divorce and then marry them instead. Or they convince vulnerable women to marry their friends. Abuse of religious authority. So if you're a person who has religious authority, that person looks up to you for guidance and direction. So if you say, I think you should divorce your husband, that person is going to take what you say with a greater sense of urgency and a greater sense of direction than if somebody else says, I think you should divorce your husband. Or if this person says, you know what, I think this person would be a great husband for you, that person is going to take what you say as a religious authority with a greater sense of conviction than if somebody else says that. But you're just saying that this is just your friend you want them to marry. Or you want them to marry yourself instead. Abuse of religious authority. Neglect of duty to protect. Muslim leaders refuse to report the abuse of children. We know children are being abused. It could be sexual abuse. It could be physical abuse. We know children that are being physically abused in the home under the guise of punishment and discipline. And we know they're being abused, and we turn a blind eye. Not only do we turn a blind eye, but us turning the blind eye co-signs that behavior. So if the mother comes to the mosque and says, I feel like my new husband is beating my children mercilessly and without mercy, and the imam said, oh, it'll be okay, just be patient, it'll be fine. We are co-signing that behavior as a religious community. We are saying that behavior is okay. And then we fail to investigate any reports of abuse. We hear reports of abuse, we hear rumors, and then we fail to investigate these reports of abuse. Religious leaders then insist on mediation when it is inappropriate. So a mother says, you know, my child has come to me and said that my husband has touched her inappropriately. So then the imam says, well, okay, let's do some mediation. let's get all these parties together to hear what's going on, when that's not what needs to happen. Removal from the home is often in the best interest of the child. If the child says, this person has repeatedly sexually abused me, mediation is not the answer. That abuser needs to be removed from the home, or that child needs to be removed from the home. Mediation is not the answer. Children often have to tell their sexual abuse story 7 times to an adult before they are believed. 7 times to an adult. How many times do they have to tell you? How many times? 1 time? 2 times? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? How many times would a child have to tell you they are being abused? 1 time? I said 1 time before you would believe them. But sadly, too many of us ignore it. Oh, it's okay. That didn't really happen. You must be mistaken. You must have imagined that. Other related harmful behaviors, sexual harassment happens in the masjid also. Misogynistic language. Misogynistic language is language that is hateful to women. Gender-based violence is common in some spaces, and that is when women are being abused, women are being beaten. And false belief that hijab can protect a woman or a girl. Some people say, well, did she have a hijab on? When someone reports something that happens to a girl, well, did she have a hijab on? And so that is an example of what is called victim blaming and shaming instead of offering real help and support. Not what happened to her, is she okay? Did she have a hijab on? Because if she didn't have a hijab on, then it was really her fault. Whatever happened was really her fault. Victim blaming and shaming instead of offering real help and support. Unfortunately, this is what we have going on in our masajids, in our cultural centers, in our Quran schools. This is what it has come to. And it's like this all over, but it's even really bad in our masjids. Next slide. So I'm a member of the Association of Muslim Chaplains. And this is a professional organization that is a combination of prison chaplains, hospital chaplains, university chaplains, community chaplains. Anyone that is a professional chaplain, that's chaplaincy as a profession, is a member of this professional organization. And so let me move this table to just kind of see what is said. Well, anyway. This is Associated Muslim Chaplains. This is our pledge. We have to take a pledge to be a part of this organization. You just can't join and say, okay, I'm going to be a part of this organization. But to be a part of this organization, we have to take a pledge. Thank you. Thank you. The Association of Muslim Chaplains hereby affirms that all persons who wish to be a member of this organization should take the AMC pledge to hold themselves to the highest ethical standards as derived from the Quran and Sunnah and abide by the AMC Code of Conduct, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The AMC pledge and Code of Conduct are firmly rooted in the general principles derived from the Quran and the ideas reflected in the life example of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We draw inspiration from what Allah says in the Quran, rendered here in English. Let there arise out of you a band of people inviting to all that is good. So right now I'm going to share with you a copy of our Code of Conduct. Yes, I just need somebody to help pass that out. And there's one for everybody. So you can look at, so what is, that is our Muslim Code of Conduct for chaplains. And like I said, in order to be a part of this organization, we have to sign this Code of Conduct. And this Code of Conduct details our behavior. And I'm going to go over some of the things that it talks about as our Code of Conduct as chaplains. And the reason why I wanted to share this with you, because some of this Code of Conduct is very similar for other religious leaders. think they're coming around. They don't have any over here. Okay, if you look at 1.2, it says AMC members shall not engage in consensual or non-consensual sexual conduct, make comments or marriage proposals with persons they currently supervise or counsel or have counseled in at least the previous 6 months. AMC members shall respect and honor the institution of marriage in their conduct with their spouse and others at all times. So what this is saying is that I'm a chaplain and I am working with I'm a university chaplain. So for university chaplains, it's even stricter. So for a university chaplain, we can't have relations with students. That makes sense to you? Does that seem reasonable? That as a university chaplain, I should not have relations with any students. Does that make sense? No. No? No? Did I hear a no?
It makes sense.
It makes sense. Okay, so as a university chaplain, I should not be having relations with any of my students. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
Okay. That is part of the code of conduct for university chaplains. Also for university chaplains, and this is a part of the code of conduct, a specific code of conduct separately for university chaplains. As a university chaplains, we are encouraged not to even marry a student on our campus, which is it's not allowed. I mean, you could marry a student on your campus. It just doesn't look right. If you want to marry a student, go to another campus. Go find a student on another campus. Because there is a power differential between a chaplain and a student. Do you understand what I mean by power differential? That I'm a person who's considered a person of power and authority over a student. Even someone who is a staff member under me. There is a power differential. So that a staff person that is under me is under my authority. I'm responsible for signing their timesheet. I'm responsible for their evaluation. So that if this person is under me and then I decide to have a relationship with them, are they having a relationship because they really want to have a relationship, or are they having a relationship because they want a bonus, or they want to take a week off when everybody else has to work? So there is a power differential that should preclude relationships with staff members. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why relationships in a masjid setting with staff should be prevented as well, because it's just inappropriate because of the power differential that is there between the imam and his secretary or his administrative assistant or somebody else that he's working with. There is a power differential. Does everybody understand what I said about power differential? So these are the things that are in our code of conduct. Look at 1.5. Teaching, counseling, and administrative meetings should not be held at places or times that would tend to confuse the nature of the relationship or put the AMC member at risk of being falsely accused of inappropriate behavior. I'm a university chaplain. I should not call a student and say at 9 p.m. and say, okay, we're going to have a meeting at the Starbucks. Meet me at the Starbucks. Is that going to give the wrong idea to a student? Might that say something is murky going on?
Personal.
Exactly. It's no longer professional.
Right.
We have gone into the personal. So our code of conduct says meetings should not be held at places or times that tend to cause confusion about the nature of the relationship. So now somebody without this kind of code of conduct is just free to do whatever they want. But if you're a chaplain and you're in the Association of Muslim Chaplains, we have a code of conduct that tells us how we should conduct ourselves as chaplains. Okay, look at number 1.8. AMC members should not handle donations or organizational cash without a witness. Stuff gets funny when the money comes in. Stuff gets funny when the money comes in. There should be a witness with the money, and there should be somebody watching the people with the money. So that's more than two people. A witness with the money and somebody watching the people with the money. Because memories fade and stuff is not written down, we have to have witnesses. Because when we're dealing with black people who tend to always need money, anybody here don't need money? We tend to always need money. Stuff gets funny. And so, AMC members should not handle donations or organizational cash without a witness. AMC members shall be honest in all, this is 1.11. AMC members shall be honest in all dealings and shall not make any false or misleading representations. Now, it says easy, so when I wasn't lying, but you were misleading. And so it's easy to say something to somebody that would mislead them. And so we don't even want to mislead them. And so as the attorney was saying earlier, what you're saying may not be truthful, but it may be credible. But is it misleading? And so as a chaplain, we have a different standard. We have a higher ethical standard of what it is that we do. We want to always be honest. We want to always be truthful. We don't want to be credible. We're not lawyers. We're not trying to be credible. We're trying to always be honest with the information that we are giving to the people that we are working with. Conflict of interest. Look on the back, 3.1. AMC members supporting fundraising or other causes shall disclose any personal gain they or their family may receive from the cause being fundraised or supported. We're doing this fundraiser, and it's really for my brother's business, but nobody knows that. That's a conflict of interest. We have to recuse ourselves from shady dealings. Shady, murky dealings. We have to recuse ourselves from that. So this is the thing, see, when you want to be a religious leader, I mean, if you just want to do this shady stuff, streets are there for you to do. It's a whole big, wide world for you to do. But when we come into Islam and we say we want to do something as a religious leader, then we are putting ourselves to a higher standard of conduct. Especially if now you say you want a standard operating procedure, you want to be held to a higher standard, and you want to be held accountable for what you do. If you're just in the little masjid in Southeast somewhere, nobody's going to hold you to accountable. You take in money, there's no witnesses, nobody knows what you're doing. You know, feasibility, you ask Allah to make tawbah and ask Allah to forgive you, whatever. Nobody knows what you're doing. You're the imam and you're large and in charge. Nobody knows. Then you can do whatever. You can do whatever. But what we're trying to do right now is establish a standard operating procedure for our ummah, for our masjids, our cultural centers, our schools, so we can go beyond the whatever. Aren't you tired of doing whatever? I mean, our children have suffered from whatever. Our women have suffered from dealing with imams and religious leaders who all they have to offer us is just whatever. We want more. We want Islam. We want all the beauty that Islam has to offer us, and that requires that we have a code of conduct. Now, this is a code of conduct for the Association of Muslim Chaplains. You may want to revise this. This was drawn up by a lawyer. We had a lawyer come up with this. Because we figured, so also on the back it talks about disciplinary procedure, investigative process. What if somebody violates this? What happens? So, okay, next slide. Okay, so all of these problems that I've talked about can be changed. Allahu Akbar. We are at the point now, I'm so glad the man should talk about having this, because we can change and we can create a better experience for our people. We can change all of this by having victim-centered response teams. Because too often now, the response we give is not about the victim, it's about the perpetrator. and protecting the perpetrator as opposed to having a victim-centered response team. So when we get an accusation, there has to be a victim-centered response team that is in charge of the victim. What do we do for the victim? After the accusation is dealt with, then there's an investigation team. The investigation team is not the same as the response team. These are two different groups. The investigation team finds out what happened. These are qualified people. These are not the imam's best friends. These are not the perpetrator's homeboys. These are best friends. Honey, the pizza. No, he's calling. He's calling. Right, he's calling. I'm going to let you call down. Right. So, what happened? What happened? And we have to get the facts. And getting the facts is not about getting, well, so-and-so said this is what happened. And you just take that person's word. You have to get the facts, not hearsay, not fiction. So if you want to get the facts, investigators don't just talk to one person about what happened. They talk to several people about what happened. They get the facts of the situation. And once they get the facts, the investigation team then turns over a complete report to the board. They turn over a complete report to the board, who is then the adjudication team. What are the consequences? In most of the cases, there are no consequences. Or maybe it's a slap on the wrist. If it's a second offense, what are the consequences? What can we do to somebody? If you're a member of the Association of Muslim Chapters, we can revoke your membership. We can alert your job that you have violated our code of conduct. We can try to get you fired. If we know you are conducting yourself in a conduct on becoming a Muslim and you have violated this code of conduct, we will let your job know that you are a wife beater, you are a child abuser. We will let your job know. We're not keeping that a secret. We will let people know. What are the consequences? And then legal counsel. Who needs to be involved? Who needs to be called? What legal authorities need to be reported? Who are the mandatory reporters? Who knows what a mandatory reporter is? A mandatory reporter, if a child comes to you and says, I have been sexually abused, are you a mandatory reporter?
Absolutely.
Some people are mandatory reporters. You can't just sit on that information. You are obligated by law to report that information. You can't just say, well, I don't know why you're telling me. What can I do? You are a mandatory reporter. And then to figure out, how does this affect the masjid? Is the masjid a breeding ground for sexual predators? Is this the first case of this happening? Has this more than one case been happening? Once you begin to have investigation, is the investigator going to find out there are serial predators in the masjid? What is going on in your masjid? And then, if your masjid doesn't have insurance, do you have insurance to protect your masjid in case someone files a lawsuit against the masjid and said the masjid was harboring sexual predators? How does all of this affect what you are trying to do in the name of Allah? You're trying to do a good work, and just some knucklehead comes in and just tries to ruin it. How does this affect all of what you are doing? That is the value of having standard operating procedures, so that as soon as something happens, we know how to handle it immediately. We already know. Call the response team, sister so-and-so, here comes the response team in your house. Boom. Brother so-and-so, the investigation team, boom, they're going into action. When the report comes, let the board know. We already know what to do. And as Sister Jenna said, this is a means of income. We can create jobs so that we have an East Coast investigation team. You know how many masjids would say, I need the investigation team to come to my masjid. When can I schedule the investigation team to come? Because we want trained, qualified investigators. Not just somebody who I just investigate for whatever. No, we want trained, qualified investigators. Oh, you used to be a homicide investigator, now you're retired? Come on, we need you to be an investigator on our investigation. We want qualified, trained, Muslim investigators. This is very, very serious business. It is very, very serious business. Other communities are doing this work. We are so far behind. We are so far behind. Okay, next slide. So you're just gonna lower that down. This is an organization in Dallas called FACE, and they're all about handling abuse cases. They're gonna talk about this.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ania Seven, and I'm the president and co-founder for a new organization called FACE. FACE stands for Facing Abuse in Community Environments. We were formed last year to address the accountability gap that exists amongst American Muslim leadership today. Unfortunately, we were seeing a number of cases that were arising where religious and community leaders were abusing their positions of power without any effective means by which to hold them accountable. The different types of abuses that we have been seeing fall into 4 distinct categories. Those are physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and spiritual abuse. Here's my co-founder, Humayya Yassine, to talk a little bit more about this issue.
Assalamu alaikum. As Alia mentioned, I'm Humayya Yassine. I am an attorney and co-founder of FACE. I'm going to give you 2 quick hypotheticals of how abuse can manifest in community environments. I'm a mother, I have 4 children. My children also attend youth group at that local masjid. What if you send your child to a local masjid and the imam that's running the youth program there develops an inappropriate relationship with your child, and the imam begins to violate the trust and abuse their position of power to that child's detriment? Where would you go? Another example, say that you're at a fundraising event and you donate a considerable amount of your hard-earned money to a nonprofit organization. You find out months later that the organization has been misappropriating those funds in an unethical manner. Where would you go?
I'm sure you can all agree, there is no scenario that exists where the Muslim community should allow religious or community leaders to abuse their positions of power and go and check if there's something that we can do about it. And what exactly are we going to do about it? First, we want to employ a reporting tool where people can come and confidentially report instances of abuse that are happening in their community. Once FACE receives a credible report of abuse, we will launch an investigation, determine what, if any, abuse has transpired and to what extent. We will seek counsel through religious experts, legal experts, and mental health professionals in order to determine the full scope of the abuse and what needs to be communicated to the broader community. If necessary, we will expose any leaders or institutions that have supported them in the process of their abuse. I know that might seem concerning, but unfortunately what we're seeing is that while some communities may be able to locally address this issue and even terminate abusive employees, there is no mechanism for preventing them to go on to other vulnerable communities and continue their abuse unchecked. We also want to work on the preventative side of things. Thankfully, there are a number of institutions who are working on the educational aspects of this topic, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. What we hope to do is fill the gaps where necessary and amplify the existing work that is out there. And finally, when we're doing this work, we want to make sure we hold ourselves to the highest ethics possible when engaging by not taking contributions from masajid or Islamic institutions. The only places where we will readily receive funding are through individual donors or organizations that are dedicated solely to philanthropic activities. I invite you to visit our website at www.facetogether.org to learn more and to support and believe in this critical work through your generous contributions. Together, we can face abuse.
You can turn the light on. So this group FACE was very influential in getting that imam revealed in Dallas. The imam that Imam Shadi talked about, the case where the imam, he groomed that girl for over a year. Grooming meaning he was her Quran teacher. So they had Quran classes initially in the masjid. Then he started saying, let's meet at a hotel. So this is the grooming process. So we had the Quran class. Then he said, I need to meet you now at the hotel. So they started having the Quran class in the hotel. Then he started saying, okay, I need you to take off your top. We were having the Quran class with you topless. And after a while, then they started having relations. And then now I need you to be my wife. We're going to have a secret marriage. All of this grooming over a period of time. And then when it finally came out, she was like, what have I got myself into? She was like 17, 18 years old. The grooming does not happen overnight. The abuse does not happen overnight. There's a grooming process. And when it finally came out, it was revealed this organization, FACE, was very influential. It was a USA Today article that talked about it. And as your man said, they put him on an airplane, got rid of him. But there's no black face. There's no black face. So I know the people in this group, and I've talked to them, but there's no black face. We have nothing comparable, so that if somebody has a problem, who do we report it to? They take reports from all over the country, all over Texas, all over the Southwest. They get reports and they investigate it. Who reports our stuff? Where do we report our cases? Who investigates our stuff?
So what's your remedy?
We need to start something. That's what I'm saying. This is the beginning of our remedy. We need people who have investigative backgrounds. We need to begin to do this. I put out the code of conduct. We need to develop a code of conduct for our own religious leaders that they can come together and say, this is what we're going to do. If we want to modify this one, add more to it. Imams need to meet and say, maybe we want to add some more to this. Maybe some things we want to change. Let's say this one is specifically for chaplains, but imams can get together and say, we like this, we don't like this, we want to add this, we want to change this, we want to do this, but we need a code of conduct for African Americans. We need a black African American. We need this kind of group. We need our own of this, especially on the East Coast. They're in Dallas. And I think if we had a group of people that went and said, you know what, we need to go to Dallas, we need to talk to them, meet with them, see what they're doing. I know them. They'd be more than happy to meet with us to say, how do you do this? How do we want to duplicate this on the East Coast? I'm pretty sure they'd be more than happy to work with us. I'm part of another group called the HERMA Project that Dr. Ingrid Maxson has organized, that she's gotten funding for to address all of these issues. I mean, because people are so very, very serious about this. But we need something for ourselves. And so this is just the beginning. Yes?
So my question is, when you say you need people that have investigative backgrounds, are you talking about specifically like detectives or trained clinicians who works with people with trauma, who's dealt with trauma and abuse? Would you
all of that.
Qualified as well?
Yes, I think all of that. Because when someone comes to you and says, I'm having this issue, somebody has to receive them and really analyze the report. Before it even gets to the investigation. That's why I said initially, first is the response team. That's the first thing. When they report something, where does it go? The response team is the first group that gets it. Then after the response team and the investigation team are two different groups. So the clinician would be part of the response team.
Okay.
The response team analyzes the report, what's going on. Someone like Sister Sharia, dealing with children, someone for the adults. And then after that, the response team can say, you know what, this is what's going on, blah, blah, blah. It goes now to the investigation team. The investigators, here's your next case. And all of these people have to be independent. As they said in faith, she said, we don't take money from masjids because we're not going to be beholden to any of them. This masjid cannot give us $50,000 and think we're going to overlook the imam who is screwing the little girls over here. Screwing the little girls over here. We're just not going to do. That's why they're independent. And so we need something comparable for our community because we are suffering. Our children, our women, everybody knows somebody who has suffered. Somebody who has gone through something, somebody who is going through something, somebody who can say, I wish I had a face right now. I wish I had something I could call right now. But we have nothing. But inshallah, yes.
I have a two-part question to some degree, but it's relation to the reporters.
I mean, the educators have to be in there before you literally have to take the training, the same training.
Yes.
I guess one of my questions is kind of two-parted. One is when matches are establishing themselves as, I guess, a religious nonprofit organization, is there any level of accountability when members are on the board or are the actual imams so that, I guess what I'm trying to understand is what is the legality, like, concept in regards to you establishing a nonprofit religious organization and you're responsible for community, faith-based community, and is there any responsibility, like, it's almost like there's no professional accountability.
No, and that's why we're doing this. That's why we're doing this, because there's none. There's absolutely none. And the thing is, you know, the people, it's no fault really for the people who have started it. They just wanted to come teach Islam, have a place for people to pray, and that was their initial intent. And then there comes, it's all these other issues that are starting to crop up that they're seeing, and so we have to fill the gap and the void of what's being done in our messages. No, there's no accountability, no legal responsibility, none of that, and that's why we're doing that.
There's no mandated responsibility for any religious institution.
No. Juliet, maybe we'll come to that.
Lisa, talk to them also about this new peculiarity that you all are dealing with on campuses that's requiring a think tank community, with homosexuality, the transvestites.
Yeah, that's another major issue. Queer Muslims, I don't know if people have heard that term, queer Muslims. That is another major thing that is infiltrating Islam. I used to think the Muslims were going to be the last holdout. I think it's the Mormons now. It's really infiltrating, especially on college campuses. So, for example, so I'm also a part of the Association of Campus Muslim Chaplains. It's a kind of a subset of Muslim chaplains, but these are just university chaplains who are talking to students facing these very problems. So a female student, a chaplain was telling me, female students came to her and said, you know, I'm attracted to other females, but I know it's haram and I don't want to act on it. Help me. What can I do? You know, she realizes she's having these urges. She knows it's haram and she doesn't want to act on it. She says, help me, but my parents are trying to force me to marry a man. I don't want to marry a man. I'm attracted to women. I don't want to act on it, but I don't want to marry a man. I mean, these are some of the scenarios that, you know, chaplains are faced with, these kind of issues. Alhamdulillah, I have not had a situation like that. I thank Allah every day. But these are the issues that are cropping up on our campuses, or situations where a male who feels the same way, I'm attracted to other men, I don't want to act on it, so I'm going to marry a queer female who's not attracted to men either, and we'll just give this pretense to our families to avoid hurting our parents and telling them that we're queer, and we'll just have a life like that. I mean, these are but the thing is, as Sharia said, were these young people abused as children?
Yes.
Exactly. Were they abused as children? What happened to them so that now they are rejecting the opposite sex? They don't want anything, they want nothing, they want absolutely nothing to do with the opposite sex. I don't want to look at a man, I don't want to touch him, I don't even want to have children. I mean, this is how bad it is for some of our young people. What has happened to our children? How are our communities failing to protect our children? That was one of the things I said on the slide. Failure to protect. That the authorities in the masjids are not upholding their duty to protect. They are not protecting women and children. And as a consequence, these are the results. These are the results of our children saying, you know what, I don't want nothing to do with the opposite sex. Sometimes because when I was young, that's all that happened to me. Rape, molestation, all of that, now I want nothing to do with the opposite sex. It's a very, very, very tragic problem that our young people are facing. And unless they're in the right environment, unless they're in the right situation where they can get the right guidance and direction, they're just lost. they're just lost. And if they're not, if they're met with the wrong, hostile, there's a situation here where a family, where a parent thought that her son was just doing bad in school because he was just doing bad in school, but I knew that he had some sexual identity issues. I just saw him on campus, and I knew that wasn't what it is. But he wasn't ready to tell he's Muslim, but I knew that he wasn't ready to say anything. I wasn't going to tell her. I wasn't going to say anything, but I just knew that that's what it was. That he was having sexual identity issues. And unless he meets you just can't throw your children away. Because the thing is, you don't know, it could just be right now. It doesn't have to be forever. We don't know how they got there. We don't know the environment. We don't know. Allah's the best knower. So in our mind is, no, they're Muslim. This is haram. They're not going to do it. And I'm going to get it. I'm going to beat it out of them. And blah, blah, blah. That is the wrong response. That will push our children further and further away. When our children are struggling, the last thing they need is for us to push them away. That's the last thing they need. They need our love, affection, and protection, because if we are pushing them away, where are they going? They're going to find the support in the world, and that world is not where you want them to be. Yes.
I was going to say, because you mentioned
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry, sir. You were next. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
and then I'm coming to you. Yes.
I wanted to say something about the whole legal issue of this.
Yes.
I don't know how it is in other states, but in New York, the courts, they really can't do much either. I know many measures in Brooklyn, they end up getting into a fight over money, they're stealing this, that. They're in courts 2-3 years, spending maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers, only for the judge to say, then, can't really help you. It's in-house, it's civil, you guys got to handle it yourself.
Wow.
So it's like there is no, there's no legal system.
A waste of money over money.
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead. Yeah. Thank you.
I was going back to when you made a statement about people fail to protect, especially like the leaders in the Islamic community. I think being a clinician, I think a big problem is the lack of the mental health is real in the African American community, in the Islamic community. The effects of the different diseases such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and how it impacts women, children, and men on various levels. So because they don't have that knowledge, they're not really equipped to address and deal with these issues in a professional and a good manner, to help. So maybe implementing, some type of educational series on the different types of mental health,
yes.
Bringing more awareness while decreasing the stigma will help, because all these issues, such as child sexual abuse, domestic violence, are the leading causes of these mental health issues, such as suicide, depression, anxiety, and more importantly, a big one is post-traumatic stress disorder. And all these things that are not being addressed the proper way causes other issues such as drug abuse, alcoholism, violence and gangbanging and things of that nature. So trying to get to the root of the problem and also educating the Islamic leaders, right, the imams and everything on these issues, and teaching them that it's real, right, and how to, maybe refer out to clinicians such as myself and others, come together as a whole will help.
Exactly. And the other thing is that when you understand adolescent growth and development, you understand that adolescents rebel. They get to a certain age and stage where it is natural for them to rebel against whatever it is that their parents want them to do. And so I remember when my oldest son was growing up, he used to tell me, I'm going to run away from home, I'm going to use drugs, and I'm going to go to church. I would be like horrified. I'm going to run away from home, I'm going to use drugs, and I'm going to church. And of course, these things to horrify me, but it was because it was at that age, and they just want to rebel. They just want to say something and do something to rebel. And so when parents know, when you know how adolescents grow up and develop, when you know that, but when a lot of parents don't know this, when they don't know the stages of adolescent growth and development, and they think this is just, abnormal behavior, and their children are just acting out. And for a lot of our children, they have what's called arrested development. And arrested development means they are doing at 20 and 21 what they should have done at 17 and 18. It's called arrested development. They're not developing as they should have for whatever the reason. They have what's called arrested development. They're doing at 20 and 21 what they should have done when they were teenagers. And so we can't throw our children away, especially the Muslim children. We cannot throw our children away. If they're acting out, whatever it is that they're doing, bring them closer to you. Do not throw them away. We don't know what happened when they were young to make them where they are today. We don't know. A lot of times, they don't report. As Sister Sharita said, that very few report. And so we don't know what happened. Yes?
A lot of things require patience. You have patience.
Yes. We have to have patience. Yes.
I remember there was a story in Chicago on the way Pakistani family where a young girl, 17 years old, had been caught dating and having sex with a non-believer. The father found out about it and he commenced to behead her, chop her head off. Yeah. And so he's in jail now. However, when they brought it to me, I said, "It's got some hell of a nerve. He leaves a Muslim country, comes here to America, filled with debauchery, to the left of you, to the right of you, in front of you, back of you, and then will put this head on her that she couldn't withstand that pressure. You leave a Muslim country, come over here in the middle of this hellhole here, and put the head on her that she couldn't withstand it, and as a result, chop her head off." So, it just goes to show you, like you said,
I mean, it's just food.
and I also remember this in my, let you continue. I was flipping around on YouTube, I watched some of the Shadid's many lectures. And I turned on T.D. Jakes. T.D. Jakes is a big Christian preacher out of Texas. And I remember saying something really profound. He said, "We can't abandon our children. We can't push our children away if we find them doing things inappropriate." He said, "If my son today walked in and told me that he was having sex with a man, fell in love with a man, if he was doing drugs, if he was a cocaine dealer, and if he joined the Nation of Islam, I would still love him." But the point he was trying to make was, he's not abandoning his children. You get me, sister? He's not abandoning his children. No matter what they do, and that's what we have to look at.
Right. So with that, we will end. Thank you so very much for that. I'm going to bring it back on Imam Shadid for our closing comments. Alhamdulillah. Thank you all so very much. Around, I'll have